There you are, precious. I'm glad that you're considering going to sleep at a normal time, at least compared to last week. I doubt that you want to tell me what's keeping you up at night. But I've always hoped that these little moments that we can share together will help at least put you to sleep. Now, I hope you've been looking forward to this as long as I have been, precious. It's one of my favorite times of the week, actually. Did you know that? The times that I get to share that with you and a book. It's something that I look forward to. Something that makes the rest of the week go by a little better. Now, I hope that you're doing better this week. And you're not just saying that to try and make me feel better. So please, just remember how valuable you are and how much I cherish you. Now, where were we? Oh, there we are. What is to be done? Asked Sir Henry. We can't stand this for long. We all looked at each other blankly. I have it, said Good. We must dig a hole, get in it, and cover ourselves with the carew bushes. It did not seem a very promising suggestion, but at least it was better than nothing, so we set to work. And with the trowel we had brought with us and the help of our hands, in about an hour we succeeded in delving out a patch of ground some 10 feet long by 12 wide, to the depth of 2 feet. Then we cut a quantity of low scrub with our hunting knives, and creeping into the hole, pulled it over us all, with the exception of Ventvogel, on whom, being a Hottentot, the heat had no particular effect. This gave us some slight shelter from the burning rays of the sun. But the atmosphere in that amateur grave can be better imagined than described. The black hole of Kolkata must have been a fool to it. Indeed, to this moment I do not know how we lived through that day. There we lay panting, and every now and again moistening our lips with our scanty supply of water. Had we followed our inclination, we should have finished all we possessed in the first 2 hours. But we were forced to exercise the most rigid care, for if our water failed us, we knew that very soon we would perish miserably. But everything has an end, if only you live long enough to see it. And somehow that miserable day wore on toward evening, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon we determined that we could bear it no longer. It would be better to die walking than to be killed slowly by heat and thirst in this dreadful hole. So taking each of us a little drink from our fast diminishing supply of water, we warmed ourselves to the idea of the temperature of a man's blood. We staggered forward. We had then covered some 50 miles of wilderness, if the reader will refer through the rough copy and translation of old Dulcevetra's map, and he will see that the desert is marked as measuring 40 leagues across, and see that the desert is marked as measuring with bad water being about in the middle of it. So, subsequently, we ought to be at most within 12 or 15 miles of the water, if any should exist. Through the afternoon we crept slowly and painfully along, scarcely doing more than a mile and a half an hour. At sunset we rested again, waited for the moon, and, after drinking a little, managed to get some sleep. Before we lay down, Umbopa pointed out to us a slight and indistinct hillock on the flat surface on the plain about 8 miles away. At a distance it looked like it could be an anthill, and I was dropping off to sleep. I fell into wondering what it could be. With the moon we marched again, feeling dreadfully exhausted, and suffering tortures from thirst and prickly heat. Nobody who has not felt it could know exactly what we were going through. We walked no longer. We staggered, now and again falling from exhaustion, and being obliged to call a halt every hour or so. We had scarcely energy left on us to speak. Up to this Good had chatted and joked, for he is a merry fellow. But now he had not a joke about him. At last, about 2 o'clock, utterly worn out in body and mind, we came to the foot of the queer hill, or sand copy, which at first sight resembled a gigantic ant-heap, about 100 feet high, and covering at the base nearly 2 acres of ground. Here we halted, and, driven to it by our desperate thirst, sucked down our last drops of water. We had but a half a pint ahead, and each of us could have drunk a gallon. Then we lay down, and just as I was dropping off to sleep, I heard Umbopa remark to himself in Zulu, "If we cannot find water, we shall all be dead before the moon rises tomorrow." I shuddered, hot as it was. The near prospect of such an awful death is not pleasant, but even the thought of it could not keep me from sleeping. Chapter 5. Water. Water. "2 hours later, that is, about 4 o'clock, I woke up, for as soon as the first heavy demand of bodily fatigue had been satisfied, the torturing thirst from which I had suffered asserted itself. I could sleep no more. I had been dreaming that I was bathing in a running stream with green banks and trees upon them, and I woke myself in this arid wilderness, and remember that what Umbopa had said, that if we did not find water this day, we would perish miserably. No human creature could live long without water in that heat. I sat up and rubbed my grimy face with my dry and horny hands, as my lips and eyelids were stuck together, and it was only after some fraction and a little bit of effort was I able to open them. It was not far from dawn, but there was none of that bright feel of dawn in the air, which was thick with a hot murkiness that I cannot describe. Presently, it began to grow light enough to read, so I drew out a little pocket of the Ingoldsby Legends, in which I had brought with me, and read the Jokada of Rhymes, when I got to where a nice little boy held a golden ewer, embossed and filled with water as pure as any that flows between Rhymes and Nimir. Literally, I smacked my cracking lips, or rather tried to smack them. The mere thought of that pure water made me mad. If the cardinal had been there with his bell, book, and candle, I would have whipped in and drunk his water up. Yes, even if he had filled it already with the suds of soap, worthy of washing the hands of the Pope. And I knew that the whole consecrated curse of the Catholic Church should fall upon me for doing. I almost think that I might have been a little lightheaded, with thirst, weariness, and the want for food. For I fell into thinking how admonished the cardinal and his nice little boy and the jackdaw would have looked to see a burnt-up, brown-eyed, grizzly-haired old elephant hunter suddenly bound between them, put his head into their precious water, and swallow every single drop. The very idea amused me so much that I laughed, or rather cackled aloud, which then woke the others up, as they began to rub their dirty faces and drag their gummed up lips and eyelids apart. As soon as we were all well awake, we began to discuss the situation, which was serious enough. Not a drop of water was left. We turned the bottle upside down and licked their tops, but it was failure. They were dry as bone. Good, who had charge of the flask of brandy, got it out and looked at it longingly, but Sir Henry promptly put it away from him, for to drink raw spirit would have been only to anticipate the end. If we do not find water, we shall die, he said. If we can trust the old Dom's map, there should be some about, I said, but no one seemed to derive much satisfaction from that remark. It was so evident that there was no great faith to be placed in this map. Now it was gradually growing light, and we sat staring blankly at each other, and observed the Hottentot Ventvogel rise, and began to walk about with his eyes on the ground. Presently, he suddenly stopped short, and uttering a guttural exclamation, he pointed to the earth. "What is it?" we exclaimed, and rising simultaneously, we went to where he was standing, staring at the stand. "Well," I said, "it is a fresh springbok spoor. What of it?" "Springboks do not go far from water," he answered in Dutch. "No," I answered, "I forgot, and thank God for it." This little discovery put new life in us, for it was wonderful, when a man is in a desperate position, how he catches the slightest hope, and feels almost happy. On a dark night, a single star is better than nothing. Meanwhile, Ventvogel was lifting his snub nose and sniffing the hot air for all the world like an old Impala ram who sensed danger. Presently, he spoke again. "I smell water." We then felt quite jubilant, for we knew what a wonderful instinct these wild-bred men possess. Just at that moment the sun came up gloriously, and revealed so grand a sight to our astonished eyes, that for a moment we forgot about our thirst. There, not more than 40 or 50 miles from us, glittering like early rays of the morning sun, and like silver, soared Sherbur's breasts, and stretching away for hundreds of miles on either side of them ran the great Solomon Berg. Now that, sitting here, I attempt to describe the extraordinary grandeur and beauty of that sight, language seems to fail me. I am impotent even before its memory. Straight before us rose two enormous mountains, the like of which are not, I believe, to be seen in Africa, if indeed there are any such in the world. Look at you, precious. Already asleep. That's a good thing, though. You haven't been sleeping well. You don't need to lie to me. I know that. But I am glad that you're on your way to Morpheus tonight. Make sure that you tell him that I said hi, precious.